questions. I just go to record.
Yeah.
And then I would click the recording.
Yeah, but I guess now just leave it on.
Yeah, and just get it ready.
Yeah, exactly.
And usually lately I've noticed with the update, it'll say, oh no, it is recording right now.
Yeah, so you can just leave it as is, because I think it'll only record once. So say cancel there. And you can just leave it recording.
Okay.
Because it uploads to the cloud, but it only does the first recording. So we just want to keep this one now.
Okay. Now I have a weird, let me pause this.
You can pause the recording, sorry. Just don't stop.
Sure. All right, so we are going to have a talk, Teaching with Empathy by Lynette and Trish. So if you guys want to take it away, and feel free to ask questions in the chat, or you said you guys were okay with people unmuting themselves, is that right? Or would
okay
you
with that?
Okay.
Yeah, because we want this to be open conversation as well. Maybe it might be therapeutic when people talk about their stressors. So something to consider. Yeah, if you want to take yourself off of mute, feel free to do so.
Okay, well, I will put myself on mute and I will be here to help.
Great. Well, thank you all for coming here today, coming to our presentation about teaching with empathy. We definitely, over the past year and a half, have really tapped into our empathy, haven't we? And so I just want to say thank you so much for coming here today. And so we're going to get started. So we're going to start off with some introductions. So I'm going to let Lynette go first.
Okay, my name is Lynette Cornelius, and I am a lead faculty for CTU and teaching what we call our career and success classes. I've been working with CTU for the last 7 years, and I'm so thrilled and excited to be here today to share some information on teaching with empathy.
All right, and I'm Dr. Trish Elley, just call me Trish. So I've been with CTU since 2011. I just had my 10-year anniversary at CTU. And so I started off as an adjunct, and then up until a few years ago, I moved into a lead position on campus, overseeing the business programs. So then the pandemic hit, and so I had to pivot, probably just like a lot of you here today had to pivot maybe multiple of times. Maybe you know basketball moves very, very well by now. So, but yeah, so I've been with CTU for some time, and this past year I had to pivot and go online and learn my job in an online environment. Very, very different experience than obviously being on campus. And I felt this past year and a half had to be very purposeful. Whenever I would have a conversation or a meeting, I felt I had to be even more purposeful with my communication. So more than just bumping into somebody in the hallway and just having an organic conversation. So I felt that was probably the biggest thing that happened to me over the past year and a half. So here's our agenda for today. And so we're going to be going over quite a few different things. And really a lot of this all kind of connects together. So we're going to talk about empathy, pandemic challenges that a lot of institutions across the United States have felt. And we're going to talk about smartphone usage, internet usage, and innovations and approaches, some ways that we can be more tied to our students and how we can really show empathy during some of these really difficult times. Okay, so Lynette, she's going to start off with talking about empathy. Would you like me to proceed right to the next slide, Lynette?
No, let me talk about empathy just a little bit.
Okay.
And so when we think about empathy, we are thinking, being compassionate with our students. And so it's the way to listen and hear what they have to say versus being sympathetic, where we're showing a little bit more pity or sorrow for someone. And so sometimes we try to, it's good advice not to show too much sympathy because sometimes it can be offensive to someone. Next slide. You go to the next slide.
Okay.
So when Dr. Ellie and I were working on this presentation, we came up with some meaning behind the word empathy. And so we used different letters to explain what empathy meant to us. So when we think about E, it's always about encouraging encouraging and empowering our students to keep moving forward, although they may be facing challenges. And as we know, during this pandemic, a lot of our students faced a lot of challenges because some of them were wanting to be at the campus because that's where they could get their homework done. But with the closing of the campuses, it pushed our students to be, pushed out to fend for themselves to find where they could actually, be able to work on their assignments. When we look at M, we want to meet our students where they are. Know your students and identify what they need from you to be successful. Because if we do not meet them where they are, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to be successful. So it's always about thinking about your students because they're all at different levels. And so you have to meet them where they are at that particular time. And P, you want to put yourself or your family member in your student's place. Demonstrate patience in your communication. So when you're responding to students, show them a little bit of passion, of empathy, so that they can, be able to move through. So do that patience with them. Give them a little bit of patience because sometimes, patience will go a long way. Then we talk about A, which is ask the right questions. If we don't ask the right questions, we can't meet our students where they are. We don't know what they're going through. We don't know what resources that we need to supply them with. So we always need to ask those right questions. When we think about T, we want to is always being innovative in our methods of helping our students, because we have some students that you have to be very creative and innovative, but we want to think outside that box. So sometimes we have to be creative in finding those solutions to assist our students, because again, if we don't ask the right questions, then we can begin to put together a plan for them to help them move forward. H, we want to help them to help themselves. So we sometimes have to be that mentor, we have to be that coach, and we have to, sometimes take them by the hand almost and, lead them to that next step. But it's all about showing empathy. And we have to do that because everyone needs help at some point in time, even us. Sometimes, we get up and we might not, know the right answer or know, where to go find something, but we have resources that we can reach out to help us move along. And so we should be, providing those same resources and that same patience and communication with our students. And we have Y, which means yield when you feel the urge to be strict and know that empathy will provide a more adequate approach. So because we have students that are at different levels, we have to be able sometimes to yield, to give them that extra time to complete assignment. Because sometimes, they're facing all these challenges, especially during the pandemic. But the pandemic is still going on. And so they're still facing those challenges, but we need to, stop to yield. And we don't have to be afraid to be flexible. It doesn't mean that, that we're weak as instructors. It means that, we are there to help our students be successful. And so flexibility might be just the thing to get your students back on track if they've gotten off track. So with that being said, what words come to mind when you think of describing each of the letters in empathy?
And feel free to type in the chat box too. I'm going to pull up the chat box too.
So far, no one has posted anything in the chat. Oh, patience. Someone just posted patience.
Yes, I can agree with that. Be showing patience with our students, because we know that when we were kids, that we always needed someone to give us a little bit of patience with the things that we were going through, or when we were in college. We wanted that little bit of patience. And I see compassion. Yep, compassion goes a long way. And especially during this time, it has been so overwhelming, you know, the different stories that you hear from your students that have been in this pandemic.
We also had empower and understanding, and now kindness.
Yes, to empower them, to let them know that, you know what, you can do this. Even when everything else is falling down around them, they can actually do this if we motivate them and encourage them and show a little bit of empathy, so that they, you know that they have someone in their corner. And I saw respect come up there, and respect goes a long way, because if you respect them, they give that respect in turn. Attitude, yes, attitude, yeah, it makes the biggest difference, because if we have a great attitude, then that rubs off on our students, and we're able to, to help them get through whatever is going on with them. And inspiration, yes, inspiration and motivation, all of those all go hand in hand. And it takes listening and being compassionate to be able to get our students motivated to do what they need to do to earn that degree, because we want our students to be successful in all aspects. Trust, yes.
I think
Trust
another
is important.
Mhm.
Go
I
ahead,
think
Dr.
another, sorry, Lynette, you can go ahead.
No, I said, go ahead, Dr. Elley.
Oh, okay. And one of the other things too, I wanted to point out, Maggie, she also said, yes, acknowledgement. I think that's huge. Like,
Yes.
I acknowledge your feelings. That goes so far with people. Like, I acknowledge what you're saying. Yes, I hear you. And I think that's very impactful as well.
Yes. Jennifer says something, yield is worrying. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it don't. Yes, a lot of things, we do go through, and we do all kind of things to, to encourage our students, but sometimes it doesn't work. But we want to continue to, to try, because if we don't try it at one time, we might not, we might be able to, influence someone. But if we don't try, we won't know. Sherry says she agrees with the trust. Awesome.
Very good. Yeah, these are all great, words that come to mind when we're thinking about empathy and meeting people where they are, especially during these uncertain times. Some people say this is post-pandemic, but I really don't think it's really post-pandemic. I think we're still in the throes of it. So I think we still must continue to be empathetic as much as we possibly can.
Yes. Okay, sometimes, we have our students that are, going through some different things. And so think about the scenarios on the screen and how would you demonstrate empathy in these scenarios? So the first one was, I woke up this morning to no electricity because I could not pay my bill until Friday when I get paid. With no electricity, I cannot work on my computer to complete my assignments. And so if you had a student and you were having that conversation with them, they might say, you know what, walk a mile in my shoes, or welcome to my life, because this is how I live. And so a lot of them are living, paycheck to paycheck. And when something goes wrong, then it sets them off on a spiral. And so that's why we have to be empathetic in our communication with our students to keep them moving forward. The second scenario says, I have been evicted because I cannot pay my rent due to me losing my job. Unemployment and other resources will not be available for 60 days because of a backload in the system. And how many times did we hear that when this pandemic started? People were, losing their jobs and not being able, to pay the rent. And the great thing about it was, that the government did step in, to help them by, stopping, the evictions and stuff. But if you talk to a student on a normal day, and they will tell you, welcome to my life. This is who I am right now until I can get that degree. And they're all looking for a better lifestyle. And so that's why they're, in school. And that's why we are here to, support them. so that they can get that degree and have a better lifestyle. And the last one is my car was stolen with my phone, and I used my phone to complete my assignments. I'm stressed because I do not have insurance to replace my phone, and now I cannot complete my assignments. And I know, in my classes, I have a number of students, that they complete all their assignments on their phone. I mean, that's the way of the world right now. They're completing assignments on their phone. It's their life. The phone is their life. And so they don't know what to do when they don't have that phone. So when one of your students come to you with those particular scenarios, we have to stop, think about what resources we can offer, and show a little bit of compassion and empathy towards them as they go through their challenges. So empathy goes a long way, and you have to let our students know that I'm with you through it all. So that's how we support them, with resources and being able to listen to what they need and asking the right questions. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Elley for the next part of the presentation.
Well, welcome to my life. This is me in 2020. Isn't she cute?
Yes,
And so is my daughter. No, but I mean, a lot of us in 2020 was really, really challenging. And, 2021 just as challenging as well. And so, a lot of us, we've had children at home, remote learning. And I realize I am not a good teacher for my kids. Leave the K-12 system to teach them, but anyway, but I definitely have known like my weaknesses with that. So, but how many of us, if we're talking with our students online, have we seen their kids like darting behind them while we're trying to have a conversation or going over our presentation? So those sorts of things happen, right? And so this is where we have the empathy, like we're all in this together. Even my kids, they would jump around, hop around, and they think it was so cute, but there are just some things that just happened, and what are you gonna do? When things are closed, you don't have childcare right there available for you. Or if you have grandparents, but then you don't want to have them get COVID potentially. And so you have to, your community, your tribe, the people that you rely on for help are not available. And that's what happened to a lot of our students, is that their tribe was gone. Their community wasn't there to help support when you really, really needed the help. Oh, I see that some people, yes, they feel this. Thanks. We're not alone, are we? You may even have grandkids. You might be in the position where you have grandkids running around. So, but this is me in 2020. That's me in the nutshell. So, so the pandemic really impacted higher education, and not just higher education, but everywhere, businesses. I teach in the business department at CTU. It has really, really affected people, no matter what. And that's kind of one of the most interesting things about this pandemic, just how much it has impacted so many individuals. So a lot of the times what we have seen is that students would use public access to computers and access to the internet before the pandemic, and then that was gone. Libraries were closed, public libraries were closed. So it became very much a challenge for students across the United States to be able to participate in lectures, be able to submit work. And so it was very, very challenging for people, very stressful. And then the rise of digital divide among students, we did see that. But one of the things that we did see was definitely the use of smartphones to even do some of their work. And I have really bad eyesight. I can't imagine doing all my work on a smartphone. But they made it work. And I think that's part of the pandemic is resiliency. And so adapt and overcome, right? And so I think we have seen adaptation. So we'll probably see more smartphone usage in the future. I think that's where we're going to be pivoting again. And for some students, they have even said, even to me, that going to the online chat, a Zoom chat, or whatever your institution is doing for synchronous time, is that it was just a break from their everyday stress, that they got to zone in on homework. It was the one thing that seemed to be constant in their life, and it felt good for them. And so that was great. So we always had great lively discussions. And so just to kind of take a break from everything. There's some other challenges that were found in a lot of institutions, and the rise of multiple format options. Some students have said, you know what, I like the face-to-face, but I rather, with this online, it's just easier with my work schedule or easier with my children's remote learning schedule. So, so we're going to probably see, some on campus, online, and also blended. So that we have to really be willing to adapt to some of those things and being more mobile between different types of modalities. And a lot of students are pushing for skills, not just a degree. Employers are asking right off the bat, what can you provide today in the workplace? What can you bring? We did see some mental health concerns. Obviously, people have been truly impacted by COVID within their own family, extended family. And so sometimes you as the faculty member ended up being that support and that therapy person. So because you were the one person that they probably communicated quite a bit outside of their household. And so they turned to you. So we also have seen an increase of coaching to support student motivation, because it's tough when you're feeling down, you're not unsure about the future. We have to really, really work harder at, let's keep that motivation going. We're here to give you the skills. We're ready to give you the toolbox that you need. And like I mentioned here at the bottom, virtual jobs. We have to really prepare these students for a virtual job someday, or virtual internship. How are we going to make that happen? So the skills that they're learning in the remote education world, how does that play a part when they move on to a virtual job later on, or a virtual internship? So we're seeing this big change in higher education. So in better preparing our students for the future. So one of the things I felt personally, I had to get a better idea of in order to understand students more, right? And with this usage of using a smartphone. So I did look at, quite a few different studies that are out there. Some of them were before the pandemic. So we did see already a lot of people having a smartphone. And 90% of them for Gen Y use the internet exclusively through their smartphone. 90% of Gen Xers owned a smartphone in 2019. 17% on the internet only through their smartphone. 68, baby boomers own a smartphone. 11% are on the internet only through their smartphone. And then 40% of the silent generation. My mom she's in her 70s. She'll probably kill me if I told you her age. But, but cell phones, even with the silent generation, she owns a smartphone. And then 15% are on the internet only through their smartphones. So, yeah. So, do not tell my mom that I told her age out loud.
My mom's 87. My mom is 87 and she has a smartphone.
She has a smartphone, right? Exactly. So anyway, but Gen Z. So let's talk a little bit about Gen Z. We've always known, right, that they're digital natives. Oh, I see somebody. Aurora Library was open. Oh, good. See, and I think that's fantastic because some libraries you're actually connecting to one of my slides later on down the road, but that's true. Some universities, what they did is that they had their library open certain times out of the week. So if students did not have the internet, they were able to connect to a hotspot with their cell phone right there and, you know, work away on their laptop. So that was nice when a lot of universities were able to do that. That was fantastic. Thanks for bringing that up. So Gen Z, they are digital natives, right? So a lot of Gen Z, we're seeing them in you know, college campuses and online. So back even in 2018, you know, 95% of the Gen Z have a smartphone and 25% of them had a smartphone before they turned age 10. My son, Otto, he's 8 years old and he has a smartphone. I know, you probably think I'm a bad parent, but he does. He has a smartphone, believe it or not. So, but anyway, that's just, he knows how to navigate a smartphone way better than myself. And then 95% of them have an iPhone and 39% of them have an Android. So this really helps. So if your university is looking at developing an app or maybe updating the website, this helps. Knowing this information really, really helps with development of those. And Gen Z are usually on their phones 5 or more hours a day. And then even part of the study too, 12% of them were on their phones at least about 12 hours or so a day. So that's an incredible amount of time being on your cell phone, your smartphone throughout the day. So Gen Z, Dr. Donahue, she had this wonderful YouTube video of her TED Talk that she did a few years ago in Canada. And so I do have a link to it at the end of my PowerPoint and be happy to share it with individuals. But she does a brilliant job talking about communication between different generations. And one of the things that really, really stood out to me from her TED Talk was that Gen Z use smartphones as a way to connect with others, and it's a source of comfort. They reach out to their cell phone to connect with other people. That's their soother. They reach out to it, and that I can see that even with my own children. I can see that if they're distressed or upset about something, cell phone time. Stressed or upset about something, tablet time. And it's true. I see it in my own household. So Gen Z are very much the same way. Like, that is my source of connecting with other people. So we have to really be cognizant of that. Okay, which explains quite a few things with behavior. So let's also look at the pandemic and internet usage by device, right? And so smartphones, this is no shocker, right, to anybody. This is from ages 16 to 64 in this study. 45% use their smartphone for internet. Not a shocker. Laptop, I'm a little surprised it's 43%, but you know, it's right up there with smartphones, because some individuals that I know, they don't have the most reliable laptop, but I tell you what, they have the top of the line smartphone.
Yes, they do.
They most certainly do. They have the top of the line smartphone, but the laptop is quite a few years old. Okay, so that's something to really think about too, because laptops are pricey as well. You know, some smartphones are incredibly pricey. So, but people like to, in a lot of cases, pay for a much nicer smartphone. Desktops, I'm not surprised they're at 24%, tablet at 22%. I'm not really that surprised looking at some of these things. So, but that's probably why we have seen such a huge increase with internet usage. With the internet, would Chromebook be a media streaming device? I would say probably so. I wonder if anybody else can verify that. If somebody can verify that, please do so. But I want to say yes. Okay.
I would
But
say yes.
this kind of is pretty telling, right? You know, why students communicate probably quite a bit through their smartphone with their instructor, or engaging with homework probably with through their smartphones. So, okay. All right. So at this point in this presentation, we want to turn it to the audience here. And this is definitely a good moment for you to take yourself off of mute, or you can type away in the chat box if you want to, whatever is your comfort level. So we kind of want to know, what are some of your challenges that you face personally? So what challenges did you face with technology usage among your students since the past year and a half?
So what I find is if I give a student an inch, sometimes they want to go a mile. So where do you put up barriers that you're not, they expect you to be available 24/7. And I agree with being empathetic, but when does it get to be too much? And how do you set those parameters? How do you guys deal with it? And Jennifer Jones, I know you're an ACC person. If you have ideas for me, I appreciate it.
Oh, ACC, you work for ACC? Oh, that's wonderful. That's great. Yeah, so personally, what I do is that I do put up boundaries. Like communication in terms of, I'm not going to be on at midnight. I have kids. So I can't be on so late at night. And so I do put up some boundaries, like I will communicate with you between this time and this time, and then anything after 9 o'clock at night or 8:30, whatever your boundary might be, whatever your comfort level is, like beyond that, I'm just not going to be able to answer until the next day.
And I do, the same. Let my students know that I'm available between this time and this time to, to assist them. But if it's like they feel like it's an emergency or whatever, I have them, text me. Just text me and let me know, what's going on, and try, to set up a time. But if you can always tell if that student is just, just taking advantage, because they're coming with excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse. And then, it's time, to be a little bit more stricter, with saying, hey, I'm going to give you this time frame in order to complete this particular assignment.
Yeah. I think that's
sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I share Joan Anderson's question, and I'm wondering, I've been struggling with that too, and I'm wondering what's a common or reasonable business standard? I mean, when you say available for a certain amount of time, is it a number of hours, certain times of the day?
Times of the day. Yeah, and the thing is too, what's interesting is that, a lot of us, we have students from all over, like different time zones. So that can also be a little tricky too, especially if you have a student who's in Hawaii or in Guam. I have a student this session who lives in Guam. And so my time when I chat with her, it's like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And then, because that's like 8 o'clock her time in the morning. So I have to think about time zones as well. But I try to do like a time frame that would be best.
And let's see. Amanda said I should say some students of mine face homelessness and moving that cause them connection issues. And I face that as well, because sometimes they end up living out of their car.
Yeah.
And especially some of them were going outside of McDonald's, and I had students that was outside of McDonald's using their Wi-Fi because they couldn't go in, and then the campuses that had closed, so that prevented a lot of them, because the campus became a safe zone for some of the students that was homeless. And so they were able to go in during the day, spend the day there, work on this assignment, sit in a nice warm place. But then when it closed, that caused a lot of issues with them being able to have access.
Yeah.
Carol said, younger generation seems to have an expectation that they get instantaneous responses to emails, as that is what they are used to, that on their phones. I've had students send an email on a Saturday night upset that I have not responded by early Sunday. This is in addition to having it in my syllabus that I may not check emails on Saturday or Sunday. Because they know, we most of us do what within 48 hours, that I think
Yeah.
That's probably a good time frame to put in.
Yeah, I think it is hard for some generations. They want that instant, like you mentioned, I want that response right now. Like, well, I got a life too. So yeah, I mean, it is tough because I mentioned right here on the syllabus,
Yep.
I'm not going to be able to respond over the weekend, but Monday morning, absolutely, I'll respond. And so I think it's probably going to be a challenge for a while too, just really setting some of those boundaries. Yeah, it will be a challenge. Okay, just looking over and see if there's sharing one computer with several children. Oh, yes. I feel for that person.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely. And then it is hard, even if, if you're sharing one computer, let's say if you do have a few computers and you're all on the internet at the same time, that slows things down too.
Mhm.
And that's also a problem. So, so yeah, it is quite challenging because using Zoom or anything that has a lot of bandwidth, it does become a problem. So, wow, I had a student share one computer with 3 generations.
Family. Grandpa Kieran.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that is very, very tough. Right. And you're all kind of competing for that time to use the computer. So they must have had like a little chart who gets to use the laptop at home. They persevered with humor.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That should be a lot of people's motto.
Yep.
Persevere with humor.
Great
I
slogan.
agree. All right. Well, thank you so much. We're going to move on to the next slide here. So here's another question. So what innovations or approaches were created, maybe at your institution, to meet the students where they are? What were some creative things that some people had? And I'll give you a moment to type. I know sometimes it takes a little while to think and then also to type. Allowing late policies, yes. Like having more forgiveness. Is that what you mean, Amanda? I'm assuming. I never heard of, is it Jula? Is that how you say it, Joan?
Yuja.
Yuja.
Does your school not have it?
We do not
It's not-
have Jula. What? Oh, so what is that?
Yuja is
I'm gonna write this down.
I mean, if your school doesn't have it, it is like been a lifesaver for me because for all my videos and everything, it captions everything. I can save it on there. So like my Zoom meetings, I bring them all the copies of those into Yuja. It creates a transcript, which is really pretty good. What I did have to send to Yuja is, of course, some terminology. I teach economics, so that they would get that terminology correct. But Yuja was great. And then I had my office hours, and the way Yuja works is that to my class, so I invite all my classes to my office hours, it sends them an email before my office hours session. They get an email. All they have to do is click on the email. They can come to my office hours.
Oh,
the problem
cool.
with Yuja is that only 5 people can speak at one time. So it's not like Zoom or anything else, but they can share their screens. They can do everything they can do on Zoom in Yuja, but just limits how many people can be talking.
That's cool. I mean, that's another option.
Right.
Is it free?
No, it was something the system did it, and our school did it. I knew some of the community colleges bought it, but some of them didn't. It is kind of expensive, and it's integrated into D2L.
Okay, so that's another option then.
They do have Yuja where there is an app. So if you would like to try it out before it became this big thing, it's more of like a video. A lot of people use it for video recording. So I can like record like a 5-minute thing for my students and then just post a link and they can all go to it and I can reuse it every semester. And it can populate typically in Canvas or Blackboard or D2L. It just depends on if your school wants to pay the money to have a separate thing. But they do have a free, they did anyway, let me check. 2 years ago, before Usua was getting bigger and schools are picking it up, they did have an option for you to try it as an instructor or try it. So if you liked it, you could do it. And there are people who've been using Usua for like over 8 years or longer. So there is that option for you. So you can totally look it up and figure it out. And I would just check with your institution, like in the D2L or whatever. I don't know what learning management system you're using. They may have already integrated it and you don't know, because during the pandemic, a lot of they integrated videos so that instructors, if they were online, that they could do that. So just so you know that might be something you have and you don't realize it, because they didn't really send out a lot of emails saying, hey, you have this new thing. And I don't know what learning management system you use, but I know that was something that just got implemented into a lot of D2L and Canvas courses. So I don't know, it may be there and you don't know it, but it would be a drop down. If it's in there, it's in a drop down, but it could be in different places depending on what school you teach at, just so you're aware.
All right, well, that's good. Thank you. Yeah, now I know more.
You can do quizzing, but it's a little bit harder. So you'll probably have to pay for that to do that. But anyway.
Gotcha. Okay, well, cool. That's good. It's fun to like learn about all these different options that you can use and like what supports what platform, what doesn't. But that's great. You can also build quizzes in that. That's good to know. And thanks, Joan. I want to look back up here. I know that some people did post. Okay, so Amy Conch said we have also focused on humanizing the student experience to support personalized learning needs through ACC. So that's good. And there's another comment that was kind of aligned with that. Where was it? I need to go back up here.
There's also refurbished laptops that was on there too, and hotspots in the parking lot.
Yeah. And it was nice that I noticed that quite a few universities, one gentleman mentioned earlier about having libraries open certain times, so that way you can hop onto a hotspot. Yeah. I thought that was really, really nice to have that as an option.
I like that, Amy, we have also focused on humanizing the student experience to support personalized learning needs. That goes a long way.
So I see here also, there's some comments. I'm just trying to kind of lump some of these somewhat together. So like policies have been revised. Also like lateness, and if there's a really good rationale as to why somebody's late, then there's like more give for that particular student. I also see here revise and resubmit policies for discussions and work that wasn't up to standards. It gave students a bit more time to revisit their work and still earn a top grade. I think that's really nice too. I've always had this type of frame of thought, is that I want you to make the mistakes here in my class and not in the real world and not in your career. Exactly. So this is where you make the mistakes, right? Let's learn from them before you get out into the real world, because you're basically a product of my class. Really, when you come out of my class, you should show like a lot of competence, right? So that's part of our job, really. And so I'm fine with students revising work to try to get a better grade, because like I said, I would rather have you make the mistake here than when you get out there and work for CenturyLink or whoever. So teaching them that it's okay to make mistakes. I think you're right on that, Amanda. And I think some students are very fearful of making mistakes, and the repercussions that can come along with making a mistake. So I think that shows, a lot of empathy. I think we probably all have been there at one point in time in our life. Right? You don't want to make a mistake, but sometimes that's just how we learn.
Yeah. And if you look at it, when we're teaching our UNIV 104 class, we always have the slide on it, and it says the acronyms for FAIL. And we said that it's the first attempt in learning. So when you fail, it's just the first attempt in learning.
Yeah. And there was one other person who commented about simulations for nursing. Nursing has been, School of Nursing, just anywhere has been faced with a lot of challenges because so much of what you do is face-to-face, right? A lot of what you do is face-to-face. But I love how you guys shifted and did virtual assessments. I think that's really smart. I think that's great that you guys did that. Yeah, because hospitals are probably sometimes comfortable, sometimes maybe not so comfortable, depending upon where the COVID numbers are, with having students on site, and some students too. One of my friends went through a PA program during the pandemic, and she was even nervous for herself to even go into a hospital. And at times she wasn't even given protective equipment. She had to get it on her own. So it was just because it was so scarce. So it was very, very tough for her. Okay, I understand as instructors, we give the relief of time, but when we do involve the success coaches to provide interventions such as the safety net resources, group counseling, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I feel that we do, luckily we have options for students, you know, counseling. I know through our institution, we have online counseling that's available. It's right from our mobile app. They can connect to somebody that can help them if they're going through grieving or some sort of really traumatic experience.
Yeah.
Okay, I just got a message. We only have 5 minutes left, but this is fantastic discussion. And I really appreciate all of you opening up. Oh yes, so Carlos will make sure that you have the option to get the PowerPoint slides. I'll make sure that the session host gets it. And then that way we can just send it out to whoever who would like to have this. So here are some things to think about. Grammarly, I know all of you probably are well aware of Grammarly, and maybe you already tout this to your students, but it's so nice. You could put it on your smartphone, you could put it on your laptop, because sometimes when we get messages from students, you're like, huh?
Yeah.
What was that? So Grammarly helps. It's free for them to use. They can have it along with their text messaging or whenever they do their homework assignments from their phone or any other device, like maybe their laptop. It really helps to kind of catch some of those errors that they really didn't mean to do. Podcasts are really nice. Some instructors are using podcasts to make sure that they get the content out there. You can have Microsoft Office on your iPhone and Android. YouTube videos. This year, YouTube is the most popular social media platform. If your students are there already, why not use it? And then you can just pop in their earbuds and listen to your YouTube video. Making resources more mobile friendly. One of the things that I've been mentioning to my faculty is making sure your PowerPoint slides are mobile reader friendly. So if they do a recording, they go back to their Zoom recording and they say, oh, that's really small type, and they see it from their phone. Oh, I should probably make that type bigger, make the font bigger. So, or maybe use different font, and having more availability to hotspots. Oh, Amanda, great. Grammarly is your new thing, and it is an awesome tool. I love it.
Yeah, I have it too, and it's great.
Okay, so we have about 1 minute left, but what innovations approaches do you think will still continue after the pandemic, whenever it's going to end? We don't know.
Yeah.
But what do you think might still continue? I know it takes a while to type sometimes responses, but feel free to take yourself off of mute.
I would say,
Students will not be required to come to campus.
yep.
Yeah, I could see that. Working remotely. Ah, yes, enhanced connection with students and greater availability. Yes, and more of this, right? Okay, so check in emails, yep. See how they're doing. Again, being their motivation, you know, like we're in this together. Yeah, but I'm definitely seeing more a focus going towards smartphones, and then how can we make things more mobile friendly?
Yeah.
Okay,
Breakdown of
any
barriers.
last minute comments? I think we're at time, but I want to say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, everybody, for
Great
coming
discussion.
today. Lynette and I, we really, really enjoyed this discussion, and it's great.
Yes, it was
And
awesome.
just so you're aware, we are recording this, so you will be able to have the opportunity to come back and relook at it. So, and I will let the people know that we had a presentation, and we'll figure out where we need to put that so you guys can come back to it. So, great discussion. Good job. Always
Thanks.
talk about empathy. I think that I feel like we're going to continue to talk about these things, and I think that we'll have even more technology that will help us to do hopefully things better and be more accessible for the students, right? So thank you
Right.
guys so much for coming today.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Right on. Thanks, everybody. Have a
Thank you.
good afternoon.
Thank you.